The movie begins by showing us a glimpse of the future world where Earth is on the verge of complete destruction. The reason behind this devastation goes back 3 years, when a deadly virus started spreading across the globe. This virus had the most severe impact on plants, and as a result, there was hardly any food left for humans to survive. Even the creatures of the ocean were infected over time, and due to the destruction of vegetation, almost every plant died, causing a serious shortage of oxygen on Earth. In this hopeless situation, scientists tried countless methods to restore Earth's ecosystem, but no matter what they did, they failed. Eventually, most people accepted the harsh reality that humanity was destined to perish, and Earth would meet its end. But now, in the present, a new ray of hope emerges, a project called Gemini created by Dr. Stephen. He explains that his team of scientists has discovered some mysterious artifacts that have existed on Earth for millions of years, even from a time when no living beings existed here. According to Dr. Stephen, these strange artifacts might actually be the very reason life was created on Earth in the first place. He further reveals that the Gemini mission will include Dr. Stephen himself, along with military pilots and many others. Their ultimate goal is to travel to a new planet and establish to Earth, a second home for humanity. Stephen calls his wife Amy and asks her to meet him one last time before leaving, but for some reason Amy gets delayed and cannot arrive on time. Since the spaceship's launch window has already arrived, Stephen is forced to leave. Heartbroken, Amy can only watch helplessly as the spacecraft takes off into the sky. However, shortly after the spaceship enters orbit, something strange happens. The artifact they brought along suddenly develops a crack. At the same time, the ship begins to experience serious technical issues. To stabilize the situation, the crew activates the alien engine technology installed on board. The moment they power it up, a glowing circle forms around the spaceship, and as the ship passes through it, they receive an extra surge of energy, allowing them to travel at an even faster speed. But when the problems finally settle, the crew makes a shocking discovery. They haven't arrived at the destination they were originally heading for. Instead, they've ended up at the wrong location. Because Peter was in charge of navigation, everyone blames him for this mistake. Stephen also loses faith in him and removes him from his responsibilities. Later, Stephen sits alone, thinking about his wife, and looks at her photo. At that moment, he decides to open the artifact for the first time. To his surprise, for just a few seconds, a mysterious artificial humanoid figure appears in front of him, but then it vanishes instantly. Stephen orders his team to locate their exact position, but they inform him that all of their stored data had already been erased at the moment they activated the alien engine technology. Meanwhile, Peter secretly sneaks out of his quarters and gains access to one of the ship's CCTV control systems. His plan is to secretly recharge the artifact and observe it alone. But just then, an announcement is made on the ship's computer. Someone is trying to open the airlock and sabotage the spacecraft. At one point, as they look out through the spaceship's window, the crew is shocked to see Peter's frozen body drifting lifelessly in space. Dr. David suggests that maybe Peter couldn't live with the guilt of his mistake and punished himself by doing this. But Dr. Leona immediately disagrees. She says, "I've worked with Peter for the last 8 years. He would never do something like that." Tears roll down Leona's face, but Stephen coldly interrupts, telling her to forget about everything else and focus only on the mission they came here to accomplish. At this point, Dr. David shares a personal story with Stephen. He recalls the painful time when he lost his daughter. David explains that back then he too ignored his feelings and kept believing that completing the mission would somehow fix everything. But in the end, not only did his mission fail, he also had to live with the unbearable grief of losing his child. Stephen listens carefully to his words and gently reassures him that one day his pain will fade, the day they succeed in completing this mission. Meanwhile, the crew notices something unusual. Their ship is passing near a strange planet made entirely of volcanic mountains. Because of this, there's no natural oxygen on the planet. Yet, surprisingly, the surrounding atmosphere doesn't contain any toxic gases either. This means they can actually step onto the planet's surface with just oxygen masks. Stephen becomes convinced that this is the perfect planet they have been searching for, the one where they can build humanity's second Earth. He orders the ship to land there immediately, but Captain Rains strongly objects, warning that they haven't studied the planet properly yet, and landing right now could be extremely dangerous. Stephen, however, dismisses his concerns. He insists that since he is the one who started this mission, his decision will be final, Ignoring the risk to the entire crew, he commands the ship to descend onto the planet. As they get closer, a violent storm suddenly strikes their ship. To reduce the impact, pilot Hester initiates a braking descent system, slowing the landing process. But there's a huge problem. This maneuver consumes almost all of their remaining fuel. This means their chances of ever returning to Earth will be nearly impossible. Still, the crew knows they have no other option. If they want to survive, they must land here. Finally, the spaceship makes its descent onto the new planet. The landing is so intense that every crew member loses consciousness for a short while. When they wake up, they quickly check the ship and realize it hasn't taken much damage. But the bad news is, their fuel is nearly depleted, which means they are now stranded on this planet. But Steven doesn't seem too worried. In his mind, the mission is designed in such a way that they can survive here for at least 4 years. Meanwhile, strange things begin happening inside the ship. Some sticky, slimy substance starts dripping from certain areas. At the same time, Richard carefully inspects the motherboard and notices the same sticky residue there as well. He also realizes that one of the cameras is missing. On the other side, the rest of the crew put on special suits that allow them to survive safely on the planet's surface. Together, they head into a nearby cave where they place the artifact and successfully activate it. Afterward, they return to the ship to collect the mission data. But then Richard shows them a video, a recording that Peter had made just before his death. Watching it leaves everyone shocked. In the footage, Peter explains that he was unfairly removed from his duties by Steven, despite having made no mistakes. But then, the recording takes a terrifying turn. Peter shows the exact location where he had placed the artifact, near the engine's chamber. Suddenly, he notices something moving in the darkness. Out of nowhere, a shadowy creature leaps onto him, brutally killing him, and then throws his lifeless body out into space. The crew is horrified. Richard then explains that after analyzing the footage multiple times, he believes something terrifying. When their ship originally left Earth and began its journey, an alien life form secretly boarded the ship by hiding inside a spherical object. This was the real reason behind the malfunctions they faced. Peter was never at fault. But Richard also reassures them that the alien is no longer on the ship. Most likely, when they landed on the planet, the creature slipped out along with them. However, before anyone can relax, Dr. David delivers more bad news. The artifact they activated inside the cave isn't functioning properly. Instead of running their programmed sequence, it seems to be working in the wrong direction. After learning all this, Steven prepares to head out again. But this time, Ryan stops him and declares that Steven will no longer remain the leader of the mission. Ryan explains that back on Earth he had found a video that revealed the truth. Steven already knew that something dangerous was hiding inside the sphere. He had discovered it during his earlier artifact test but chose to keep it a secret. In reality, Peter's death wasn't his own fault. The responsibility lies entirely with Steven. Hearing this, Steven is left speechless. He quietly walks away and isolates himself in a room. After some time, he visits Dr. David and asks him to carefully study the sphere. Steven also suggests that David should hide inside the airlock, so if the strange creature does emerge again, it won't be able to find him. At first, David refuses to go along with the plan, but Steven brings up his daughter's memory, pulling at David's emotions. Eventually, David reluctantly agrees. When the two of them return to the cave, they make a shocking discovery. The sphere is accelerating the growth of alien life far faster than human life. And the reason for this is clear. Someone has secretly altered the sphere's settings. Steven tries to reset the sphere's settings back to their original state, but David keeps warning him to leave immediately, saying the situation is far too dangerous. Steven ignores every word. David's eyes suddenly lock onto the sphere. It's moving, straight towards us. With no other choice, David fires a shot at Steven. The sound of the gun echoes through the cave, almost as if it has made things even worse. David keeps shouting at him to leave, but Steven turns around and pulls out his own weapon. The atmosphere becomes unbearably tense, but before either of them can act, a deep, guttural growl echoes from the shadows. The alien has already entered the cave. Despite the danger, Steven grabs the sphere and holds onto it tightly. Both men start running through the darkness, the chilling screeches of the alien following them closely. Just as the creature is about to strike, they manage to reach the ship in time and slam the airlock shut behind them. Breathless and furious, David yells, "You almost got us killed!" Still panting, Steven responds coldly, The sphere is more important, and next time, I won't hesitate to shoot the alien." Before he could even finish speaking, Ryan arrived and got angry after seeing all this chaos. Stephen tried to explain to Ryan that the orb was extremely important, because through it they could restore everything back to normal. But Ryan refused to listen, and instead punched Stephen hard. Meanwhile, one of the competitors triggered an alarm and announced that their computer had been hacked. Leon immediately began investigating, but when he entered the system room, he noticed something sticky was clinging to his foot. Just then, out of nowhere, he was dragged into another corridor. There, Leon discovered it was Frank who pulled him aside. Frank revealed that the alien was very close to them. Both of them rushed into a lab to hide, but breathing there became extremely difficult. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the place into darkness, and from behind the ship's plant unit came a strange sound, meaning the alien was right there. Frank quickly pushed Leon out of the room to save him. As Leon ran, he suddenly heard Frank's loud scream and realized the alien had killed him. Leon then rushed to the control room, where he met the remaining crew and explained everything that had just happened. Ryan once again yelled at Stephen, blaming him for bringing the alien back with him from the cave. In the middle of their argument, they discovered that the alien had also damaged a generator, which caused the cameras to malfunction. Their communication with Richard was also cut off. The only solution was to repair the generator. Since it was Stephen's fault in the first place, he was ordered to do it, but the task was far from easy. Tracking the creature was nearly impossible. Stephen armed himself and carefully approached the generator. Fortunately, he managed to restore the communication system, allowing everyone on the ship to track the alien once again. How of Last Seco? But as Stephen tried to leave, he suddenly heard some strange noises and thought his death was inevitable. Just then, Ryan pulled him back into the control room. Now all of them came together and started planning how to force the alien out of the ship. According to the plan, Stephen once again lured the alien outside, while Leona was the first to open the airlock where the creature was trapped. She quickly hid herself in another room, and the alien came out. At that moment, Richard attempted to ignite the engine to burn the alien, but he failed, because the creature had already disrupted Stephen's engine signal. Stephen ran desperately to save himself, and Leona rushed to help him. Just then the alien reappeared, but Richard finally regained access to the engine controls. Taking this opportunity, Stephen and Leona sprinted back inside the ship. Once back inside, the creature was hit by the flames, but it wasn't enough to kill it. The alien tried to reach Stephen, but he and Leona managed to pull themselves in and shut the airlock door. In the struggle, however, the alien badly injured David's body before retreating back into the cave. A little later, the team discovered Frank's lifeless body. Seeing this broke Leona completely, and she became so devastated that she eventually chose to end her own life. Witnessing all this tragedy, Stephen's mind went back to memories of his wife. He tried to explain to him that she was working on creating a vaccine, but even more important, she revealed that she was still pregnant. For Stephen, that was more than enough reason to stay, but he still valued saving the world over his personal life. David took the injured members to the lab, while Stephen once again buried himself in his work. He went to examine the alien's severed tail in the lab and discovered that the creature was actually a bio-robot. He also realized that both the alien and the orb were made from the exact same material. Stephen explained this discovery to Ryan, who was lying in the lab injured. He told him that the very spot where the alien had wounded him contained a unique substance, something that could be used to create a vaccine. Stephen then cut a small piece from the creature's tail, but as he did, the lights in the room began flickering on and off. Strange visions appeared before him, the same ones he had seen earlier on Earth while studying the artifact. Stephen understood that in order to truly destroy the alien, he first had to fully restore the orb system settings. But before he could do that, Ryan locked him inside a room, saying, "You've caused enough damage already. I won't let you walk out of this lab again." At that moment, Stephen's mind once again flashed back to his wife. The arguments they had before he left for this mission, and how he had abandoned her without even telling her the full truth. Despite everything, Stephen returned to his research. Meanwhile, Richard made another shocking discovery. They were not on another planet at all. They had been on Earth the whole time. And at that time, there were no humans on Earth because this was 4 billion years ago, long before the creation of mankind. The reason behind this is that, although they started their journey with the spaceship, the ship's speed was so high that it allowed them to travel through time by passing through the sphere, sending them billions of years into the past. The sphere they thought was a crown was actually the real artifact that scientists had previously discovered. After realizing all this, they were so shocked that they didn't even notice their colleague David was on the verge of death. But Stephen, using parts of the creature he had with him, made a bracelet for Amy. He then wrote a message on another fragment, believing that in the future the message would appear on Amy's bracelet. Meanwhile, Amy goes to Stephen's office and learns that their mission has failed. On the other side, Richard informs that Ryan is preparing massive explosions to destroy the sphere. Seeing this, Stephen tells Ryan to open the airlock because he has a better plan to solve the situation. But before he can finish his words, Ryan is suddenly shot by none other than David, who had been completely corrupted by the alien. Witnessing all this, Stephen throws his Rubik's Cube to the other side, making David run after it, and uses this chance to hide and escape from the lab. He intentionally threw the cube outside so that the alien's attention would shift in that direction. As the alien actually moves toward it, Stephen rushes to the control room only to find David already there. This time, David decides to kill Stephen and points his gun at him. But at that very moment, the alien grabs David and tears him apart into pieces. Stephen gets another chance to escape, and this time he intentionally goes outside and detonates the bomb inside. As a result, both the alien and the control room are completely destroyed. After the blast, Stephen lies unconscious for a while. When he finally regains his senses, he hears Richard's voice trying to contact him, because Richard is desperate to save him. But Stephen tells him that a violent storm has risen outside, making survival almost impossible. So Stephen heads into the cave and repairs the sphere's system. At that exact time, his wife Amy is holding the bracelet Stephen had once given her, and suddenly, she sees the message he had left for her appear on it. Meanwhile, Stephen manages to activate the sphere, and something miraculous happens. For just a few seconds, Stephen appears in front of Amy in the present. Stephen knows very well that he only has those few seconds, so without wasting time, he quickly tells Amy the formula for the vaccine, so that she can create it and restore the world back to normal. Immediately after this, Stephen vanishes into thin air and returns to the cave, where he finally dies. Amy realizes her husband is no longer alive and breaks down, crying bitterly. Months pass, and we see Amy successfully create the vaccine using Stephen's formula. The vaccine works, humanity is saved, and the world returns to its normal state. Later, Amy even gives birth to their child, and this is how this incredible movie comes to an end.